Hi everyone, it's Mindy with Mindy Egan Design and welcome back. Today's project is going to be decorating an envelope. This is for the Scrappy Challenge over at Kraftin Kimmie Stamps and it's create anything but a card. So I decided for an envelope. So I'm starting off with a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock, cutting it to 8 1/8 by 8 1/8. I'm going to be Copic coloring, so this is why I chose to use the Neenah cardstock. I'm also going to be using the We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board, and they have a little diagram down there to tell you what the measurements are, what you need to cut your paper at, and what you need to score it at. And the first score is doing 3 3/4, and then I'm going to rotate that. I'm going to use the notch there that I point to, score, turn it again, and use the ruler there at the top to do 3 3/4. Turn it again and use the notch. And I line that notch up with my measured score line. That is the trick. You don't want to use those measurements on every single one. You want to just measure it, score, rotate, and line up the scored lines, measure it and score and rotate. That is the trick. Then I'm going to just come through and crease my lines on all my score lines. So those are nice and crisp. I don't want to seal anything yet. And this is going to measure for a 4.5 by 5.5 card base, according to what their chart showed, which is a perfect size for my cards when I make them 4 1/4 by 5.5. So I'm just going through. I'm going to leave this open because I need to color on it. And then they have on the other side of that board, they have the corner rounder. So I'm just going through and rounding my corners on that. So now I'm going to stamp my image, and I'm using this little sheep from the You Are Amazing stamp set from Kraftin Kimmie Stamps. And shockingly, I know I'm not using a Misty. I was a little nervous about this, but I didn't feel like fighting with the Misty with this opened up like it. So I'm just inking my image with My Favorite Things Extreme Black ink. This is my new favorite Copic friendly ink because I have a lot of layers of colors in my images, and this really helps. I don't have any fuzzy black lines. So I just line that up down in the corner there of my envelope, push down real good, real scared to to remove my stamp to see if it worked. So I'm getting a nice good impression. Remove that and it worked. I was very excited. I actually gave myself a thumbs up after I did this. So here I also created a mask so that I can do some ink blending for my background of my card. So to do some ink blending without it getting on all the flaps of my envelopes, I actually took some just white copy paper and placed it around the edges of my envelopes, so that it's just going to be the front of the envelope where the address and everything would go. And I'm holding everything down with some thermal web purple tape. And I'm just holding that down so that when I do ink blend, everything's not going to shift and move around on me. And then I'm going to come in and start working on creating a sky. I kind of had just a nice springy field image in mind for my sheep. And for that, I'm going to be coming in with broken china. And I'm doing this really light-handed, or I'm trying to do this really light-handed. And now we're going to go into warp speed ink blending. And I'm just coming down. I'm going to have a hill by the feet, so I'm just coming down part way. I didn't want to go down all the way with the ink blending. And being careful of my edges so I don't pull up on my paper. So now I'm going to come in with the Landscape Duo stencil from Neat and Tangled. I wanted to create a hill, so I'm just holding that down with the purple tape onto the card and also onto the side there. And then I'm going to use a Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink. I thought this was just a really nice bright green that would make great for a field. And I'm using a sponge dauber for this because I thought I had a little more control when I'm using the sponge dauber. I don't feel like I'm going all over the place for it. So I'm just covering that area nice, giving it a good coat. And once I have that finished up, this is just kind of a base layer is what I'm doing with that landscape stencil. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And I'm going to come back in with the broken china and just bring that down a little bit more, kind of blend those lines together so they're not so harsh. And then once I feel I have a pretty good coverage of that blue, I'm going to go ahead and remove all that copy paper around there. Now, I did notice that the hill didn't come down all the way to the bottom, and that's fine. I'm not going to come back in with the green. I just left it as is. And so now I can go ahead and remove my mask to reveal my image. Now, to me at this point, this isn't looking like much, but just wait till we get this image colored up and we add in the grass. It's really going to come together. And I also noticed towards the top there that that blue wasn't real dark. It didn't seem to blend very well at the top. So I just came back in with that broken china and added a little bit more. And I kind of liked it splotchy where it was dark in some areas and light in others. I think that really made a more realistic look to my sky. So now I'm going to come in with my Copic markers and color in my image. This first little section shows you how slow I actually do color, and now I'm going to send you into warp speed again. So I'm just adding a little bit of shading to the face, not a lot. I didn't want to overdo it with the coloring just because it is an envelope, and actually I don't even plan on mailing this envelope. I know some people do. They can put a glaze over it once it's finished. My intention is actually I like hand delivering my envelopes. So these typically go to friends or teachers. They really get a kick out of them. So that is my intention with them. But with the Copic markers, I'll have those colors that I use listed at the top of the screen. They're also going to be on my blog and also in the video description below. So I just start out with the darkest color, and then I'm going to blend out to the lightest. And I do come back in with that dark color just a couple more times once the ink has kind of had time to soak in, just to kind of show that there is a shadow there a little bit, but I didn't overdo it this time. And then I came in with some pink just for the ears and the mouth there. And now I'm doing the hooves, a little bit of shading. I just used 2 markers on the hooves. And you can see there in those hooves, I do have some splotches where I didn't complete my mask all the way, and I'm going to fix that with my grass. My grass is going to completely cover that up. So now for the sheep, for the wool, I really did not pay attention to shadows on this. I literally just came in with the darkest color, and I just went around the fluffiness, and that's pretty much what I did. Is I just did the outlines of them. I kept this real basic, and I'm going to just blend it out a little bit. I didn't want to color in the entire image. I wanted to leave white because that's typically what you do if you want an image to be white. You want to leave some white. So I'll come in and just blend those out, and I do come back over it with the W5. I start out with the W4. The W5 is just where I'm going to come in and add little dots. I just thought it was a cute little texture to the wool. And I'll do that a couple times. Now I'm going to send you into super warp speed on coloring the grass because this did take a little bit longer. All I'm doing is adding flicks. I start out with the lightest color, which is the YG25, and add in the other 2 markers that I have listed at the top there. And I'm just adding flicks all over the place. I'm just going along the top of the hill, the bottom of the hill, and I just keep adding in those colors. If I feel it got a little too dark, I'll come back in with the lighter color. And I tried to keep it a little bit lighter towards the top where the sun would be beaming on top of the hill, and adding the dark at the bottom. But this was really easy. It covered up the areas where I didn't mask my image all the way, so that was kind of a nice little trick that I threw in there too. Then I'm also going to come in with a sentiment also from the same stamp set, which is "You are amazing," which, let's face it, teachers are absolutely amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that with the MFT black ink to finish off that portion of the card. And then we need to seal these flaps. So this is the bottom, and I'm just going to use some double-sided adhesive. It's 1/4 of an inch, and I'm putting it along the edges of that bottom flap. And I'm going to remove that backing, and that'll seal up the bottom portion and fit my card perfectly. All of my supplies will be listed down below in the video description and also on my blog. I hope you enjoyed this envelope art that I created today. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day.